Yeah, I think that you are very, very thorough, more thorough than anybody I've ever experienced in an awards nomination process. And I have to say, you guys are extremely organized. We were thrilled to win, given also that we were competing against really high quality individuals and projects, and companies. And that was also really thrilling to know that the quality of what we were providing was reviewed carefully and allowed us to really show our competitive advantage and the quality of what we were submitting. So that was a big deal. And I think that that's something which you can't discount, because you find yourself, and it's something like this where you get some pretty superior projects competing. So that's one thing I want to say that I found to be unique in this experience, was really the great judging and the thoroughness. I know sometimes when you do these kind of applications, they can be pretty detailed and they can feel a bit rigorous sometimes. But you'll find when you do this kind of particular submission, that not only does it help you hone your message, but you're able to take the material and apply it to other strategic efforts. So that's also something which I think makes the process, estimable. So those are kind of the major points that I want to make. I really just also say that, your team was really great about staying with us through the process and keeping us updated, and ultimately really encouraging us when we weren't sure, on certain steps. So obviously being winner was really fabulous, and I wasn't able to be there, so that didn't make the celebration any less fun. So that's the last thing I'll say about attending virtually. Yeah, it's a little bit not quite where you want to go, but for us, Reach.Love has been a labor of literally of love. The idea that, this is clearly, we're already moving into flat virtual gatherings like we are having one right now, but more and more people are going to be moving into dimensionalized space, and they're going to want to make good content. And that's why we designed Reach.Love, because it's so hard to make stuff in Unity and Unreal still. I just, felt really proud that this was recognized, that we were the next step, the next bridge to that future. When we won, even though I couldn't be there, it was really fun. So saying that even though you have to go to a virtual conference in some ways, it's really appropriate to our medium. Well, the main thing is, I think that really made our application stand out was some of the way that we did use cases. And I think that it's really, when the judges are having to look through so much material and strategies and other kind of, can be somewhat drier material, who's the competitors, et cetera. When you use cases, you're telling a story. And the more clever that your use cases are, the more, engaged the judges will be. And I have to say, my team actually wrote those use cases, and they did a fantastic job. And they're kind of funny and fun and engaging. And I think that applications don't give you a lot of room to do that. So whenever you can do that, I think that's really helpful.
We won the VR for Training and Education Award last year with our Vodafone Working at Height experience. This is obviously a training experience based around sort of enterprise use cases. And some of the areas that we were looking at specifically in relation to this is the ROI and the sort of the KPIs and the learning outcomes that we met as a specific requirement to fulfill a strong nomination within that particular training candidate category. As that particular sector is growing and there's a lot of competition, last year it was the third of the VR awards, so this will be the fourth this year. We're very much beyond just the wow factor and the hype of using VR for the sake of it. And that's one of the things that we've really prided ourselves in and sort of put very strongly into our nomination materials. But then, sort of having those specific values and metrics to show that the impact and how that experience is being used, how it is meeting those particular business or learning objectives that it was designed for to meet in the first place, is absolutely crucial for the judges to understand the validity of the experience itself. Vodafone, they had a global internal sort of desire and drive to reduce fatal incidents on the job, and through working with them and creating a demonstrator and a prototype to bring stakeholders and engage people internally, we realised that the VR is very much a strong candidate for the medium of conveying that message around the dangers of working at height. But it's more than just Rich's Planck experience. It's about the other sort of learning outcomes and the managerial empathic side of things as well. So it was very clear to ensure that we had all of that covered in a concise manner. As Daniel said, one word should be the value of 10 to keep your entries short and to the point, without too much waffle that just ends up doesn't really meaning anything. We did also sort of get nominated for a couple of other categories as well beyond the VR training one. We were nominated for Innovative Studio and also the Enterprise Solution. So if you're thinking of going in for the Innovative Studio, there's a lot of extra steps involved, and there's a lot of actual one-to-one. Well, there was last year, obviously, conditions this year, one-to-one maybe via video, but you will be sort of met and assessed, and have a lot of the actual sort of business structures and pipelines and aspects of your sort of development approach rigorously sort of pulled apart and inspected by the Innovation Studio judges. It's all very friendly, but there's a lot of extra questions there which you'll need to be prepared to answer and show that you are actually doing something other than just building content in Unity or Unreal. And then in terms of the enterprise side of things, this is where we struggled a little bit in terms of actually determining which experiences should go into which category. And once we saw the other nominations, that became clear. And I think that's sort of lessons learned for us for next year or this year. The education and the enterprise side of things, just bear in mind if you're thinking about enterprise, and it's very much a solution, very much software that is available to work and has a much wider remit than just one specific sort of training purpose, and is much more of a, as the category says, a solution that can be licensed out and supported as more of a sort of SaaS type experience. But back to the our category for education, Daniel's already raised a number of sort of valid points, but in terms of including media, we all know the best way to explain VR to people is to be able to put a headset on them. If we can't do that, then the second best way is through really quality videos and media content showing mixed reality videos. What is the actual experience like? What do you do when you're going through it? How does it make you feel? And being able to sort of build up that journey and that sort of whole story around the experience in terms of the concept art, the design iterations, the specific processes that have gone through to ensure that the end product that's being assessed is actually the very best possible, and ultimately provide as much feedback as you can. If you're working with clients specifically, get them involved in it, especially getting them to the show. It makes them feel much more engaged, and you're not just trying to sort of ride on their sort of coattails of their name, and they will be able to add additional sort of feedback and testimonials to really help bolster your particular nomination and submission. And ultimately, that all adds up, because sort of showing the value and the actual sort of genuine purpose and outcomes of why your particular experience is sort of should be chosen over the others that have been nominated. Winning for us is great. We had been nominated not the year before that. I think it was the very first year. So to actually attend and win, and it is all on the night. You are waiting for that envelope to be opened, and you are waiting for whether your name's going to be read out. Although I wasn't at the event itself, getting the feedback and seeing the videos and seeing the pre-event build up and excitement amongst those who were attending, it's a genuinely spectacular evening, and to actually come away with that physical, solid, very nice, shiny trophy, certainly, to bring it back to the team, and to it really helps sort of pay off all that hard work that's gone into developing that particular experience. And you can support that, and AIXR and VR Awards support you. There's a lot of coverage around on social media in a build-up, on the night itself and afterwards. We are now members, so we will be utilising our one free nomination this year. But I'm sure that we will be looking to nominate other experiences in other categories. We're working on our shortlist now, but thankfully, sort of some downtime due to enforced remote working means that we've got a bit more sort of mental space to think way in advance now how to make our nominations this year even stronger than the ones that we did last year. Daniel, did you have any questions for me at this point?
I guess what would just be interesting to know as well is from your perspective, what was the process like, or the communication like with the team throughout the process with the awards and stuff like that? How did you find interacting with the Academy on that front?
Well, the interaction was flawless as always. We got our nominations in comfortably before the deadline, I think. I don't think we actually needed any additional sort of questions or had any issues prior to submission. But throughout the process, we were kept updated and made aware of the various dates and the various stages, anything that needed clarification, and especially when it came to on-site visits from some of the judges to speak to us one-to-one. It was all organised in a nice, timely fashion well in advance, so that we could ensure that we could give them the best experience, but also prepare the studio for visitors, get all the important banners and materials and hardware readily available out of developers' hands, so that any sort of impromptu demos could be done. And throughout the lead up to the actual event itself, booking the table, confirming who's going, there was no real issues at all. Everyone was just more, they were able to focus on the night itself and what dress or what tux that they needed, and getting there on time, and hopefully not enjoying too much bubbly and making a fool of themselves.
I'm with ILM X Lab, and I run marketing and PR for our group. We are a sort of sub studio within Lucasfilm, based in San Francisco, and we've been working with AIXR and the VR Awards for a few years now. Last year, we were incredibly thrilled to win VR Game of the Year. Or sorry, I'm not phrasing that right. I think it was best what was the category? Danielle?
Experience. We are experience of the year.
Thank you. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. I'm still waking up here on the West Coast. But that's the category that we won. It was definitely really exciting for the whole team here. And in previous years, we've gotten awards for Secrets of the Empire, which is another Star Wars experience, and Carne Irina. I think in general, the thing that we always like to start with when we're thinking about submitting for awards is ensuring that we have the right category or categories selected, because I think that ultimately will sort of unlock success for you. We've definitely over the years applied for categories in whatever award circuit that maybe weren't right, and gotten some learnings from that. I'd say the biggest thing that we try to do now is just unpack that as soon as we can, and hopefully when the awards open up. So we had the longest runway, and we're able to contact the organizers. I think obviously it's a great step for everybody coming here today to learn more about how the VR awards work, and getting some good advice. But I would definitely encourage you to, once you're going back and looking at the categories, to identify ones for whatever project you have that you think you would be applicable for, and then actually reach out and speak to the Daniels or whoever makes sense at the organization, and see if that actually aligns. Also, probably kind of obvious, but maybe something that could be easily overlooked is looking at, the category nominees and winners from previous years. Are the types of companies or experiences that have won or been on the short list in line with how you're viewing that category? I think sometimes, how we might interpret something might not be the same way that it's being defined by the judges. So it's always good to make sure that you're headed in the right direction from the ground up. Other stuff, and this is just a little bit about, I think, preparation, but we typically will go into the awards portal and then generate just a shared spreadsheet out of the categories, pulling out all of the detail from questions to character count to specifications, and dropping that in a document, like a living document, where we can work on the materials collectively as needed. And then when those are all fine, we just go ahead and drop them back into the portal itself and submit. I think it's an easy way to effectively work on your materials. And thinking about other things up front, we've been talking about submission materials. Like, what does that look like for you? Do you already have stuff that you can leverage? Have you done something in the past? Do you have a trailer? Like, we try not to reinvent the wheel when we don't need to, but also we want to make sure that we have the right support, from the words we're putting down on digital paper to the visualizations through our assets. And I totally agree with, what Daniel was saying about the importance of those. I think having a strong suite of assets can really be a make or break in some way. Of course, the written explanations are very important, but I think that without the visuals to really help round out what you're saying, that it can really be a much weaker case if you don't include those. But you have to think about things like, do you need budget? What does that look like? And making sure I think you're getting out in front of those things, so you're not, midnight the night before the deadline, rushing around and realizing that you don't have the right things. Let's see what else. We do work in LBE. Vader Immortal, that's a narrative series for the home. It's on the Oculus Quest. So that one was really quite easy for us to provide keys. For previous years, Star Wars Secrets of the Empire and Carne Arena, those are location based. So trying to figure out solutions to, getting people to actually experience the project. I think luckily for us, when we were, sorry if you can hear my cat meowing in the background, by the way, she's here with us. for Secrets of the Empire, we luckily had a location in London at the time, so we were able to get judges in there. But you might want to think around, like, if your LBE is in a place where judges are not located, how might you best communicate that through your visual materials, and also what are your parameters? We've gotten requests in the past for just a straight video capture of the experiences. Our stance has been that, for something like a 4D project, it actually kind of does a disservice to the work just to pull out the virtual component, because you miss a lot, especially for like a social LBE like the Void. So we've made different decisions in the past and tried to, service a need to communicate what the project is in a way that we also feel will uplift the project and not potentially water it down. So I think you should think through your solutions there. Other than that, I think for us, it's always been a really great pleasure to work with the team behind the VR Awards. They're very accommodating, very accessible, which is great. And when on the other side coming out of the win, we've been provided a lot of cool opportunities, through written case studies, social promotions, and another fun thing that we've done is panels in Altspace with some of the core creatives behind Vader Immortal and Secrets of the Empire. So I think the team does a lot of really fun promotional things that you can take advantage of if you're in that sort of winner circuit, which we've always really appreciated. Daniel, is there anything else you'd like me to cover?
Honestly, I think both of you have done a really good job of covering all the different aspects of it. I think, that's something that I always forget about, is the fact that we do have the like the AMA series for all of our winners, and we do case studies with all of our finalists as well. Because we want to be able to, like I said, maximize those experiences and support people. So, I think that you guys have covered some really good points. I think one thing I'd say as well when it comes to kind of LBE as well is, we've worked on different solutions with different people. So if in the event that during the judging period, judges can travel freely and things like that, then we are accommodating to different solutions. Lots of venues and things like that provide us with free tickets and kind of portals and stuff for our judges to register and visit those things. Some, it's a very flexible thing. But in most cases, what I'll say to you is that providing that you provide really strong materials and real good assets with that, then in most cases, it's not really an issue. The second thing as well with that is in the event or a likely event that judges aren't able to travel as freely during that time, then you're going to be in the same boat as everyone else. So you're not going to have any unfair advantages. No one's going to have any unfair advantages or anything like that with that. So it's about making a kind of a quality kind of application with that. And the only other thing that I think, just from hearing everything from everyone saying, is, from our perspective as well, is that it's about supporting companies from small companies through to big companies. Every year, I think actually for the past 3 years now, Game of the Year has been won by indie studios. And, it's providing that, if you can show the care that's gone into the project, then, you've got a very, very big kind of fit in. And it's not necessarily just about the resources that a company has, but also about the heart of the project.
Yeah, I think the one last thing I would add that we always think about when we're starting to actually write out our written explanations is really what is the core thing that we want to get across, and just making sure that we have a really strong perspective on what that is, and we're really thinking down multiple layers into how we can reinforce that throughout our written and our visual communications, and just really making sure that everything kind of rolls up into that core premise. I think it's if you don't, if you're submitting for a category and you don't really understand what you know, your position is there, it's not going to be as strong. So I think, you know, up front, going through, once you've identified and confirmed that you're in the right category or categories, really understanding like how you want to speak about your project there is really critical. And it really, I think, helps just to really have a strong application at the end of the day.
So for us, at Backlight, back in 2018, we were shortlisted in 2 categories. So we had a little bit of a training with submissions. And this past year, in 2019, we were shortlisted in 4 different categories, including Innovative VR Company of the Year. And what we can take out from all of those is that the process and the organization with the VR Awards is extremely simple and easy, and everything is made so that people who are submitting are stripped from any extra stress possible. And the idea between the VR Awards is something at Backlight that we really, really like, having something to recognize the VR industry around the globe. That is specifically for us, is really, really fun and really, really great for this industry. It's also, when we talk about it, when we're getting ready to submit, we're thinking we're not in competition with the people that are submitting as well. It's more of a co-opetition, because the market is starting out right now. So everything that recognizes the amazing studios that submit amazing projects every year is just is great for everyone. The main things that we really, really like, apart from the amazing dinner, obviously, is there's a lot of follow-up events and a lot of advertising from the VR Awards and AIXR. So that means a lot of support, and that's tons of opportunities for a studio like us to maximize our online voice and to maximize our visibility, and that's worldwide, so it's extremely important for us. And the other thing I would say is that we were able to rely on the AIXR team. They're extremely reactive, super nice. They've been a great help to us when we were working on our submissions. Because the one thing when you're submitting a few projects at the same time, it can be very time consuming. And it's also kind of a stressful process. So it's really, really great to have a team behind it that we know is going to be here to help us answer our questions right away. So we really, really appreciate that from the AIXR team. It's also something we're really proud of. For this year, we won the VR Marketing of the Year award for something that we did for Oasis. And for one, it's an experience that was for a beverage brand that is not really well known outside of France. So for us to win something that is actually competing with people around the globe and winning with something that is very French is kind of something that we're very proud of. So the team was really, really happy when we heard that we'd won. And the other thing is that we submitted, most of our experiences that we submit are actually either rides or hyper reality experiences. So there's a lot of haptics in there. They're actual attractions, and the judges, they cannot see that, or they cannot necessarily experience it all the time. So we had to work on, in our submission, to make sure that we were conveying all the sensations that you would get in trying Oasis through our case studies, but also through the submission itself. So that would be one tip that I would give, is making sure that you're working on your case studies, not only for the VR Awards, but for your visibility as well, making sure that all the features, the amazing features that you're supposed to be living through VR, you're conveying those with other mediums, including video, because it's really hard to make sure that people understand that you're actually having a lot of fun in a ride where there's a dynamic seat, it moves, it vibrates, and that's also something that makes a VR experience great. So making sure that you're packaging your submission to convey all of that is really important. And there's also the fact that we were really proud of the category that we won, because we do work in marketing in VR, but we also work in LBVR. But that proved, not only to us when we're actually like working all the time and not thinking about that we can actually make some pretty fun experiences for marketing as well, and we were really proud of that. And that leads me to another tip that I would give, is to make sure that you submit your project in the right category. So that sounds obvious, but error can occur. Some projects might be submitted and not win just because they didn't quite fit the category. So what I would say is, and that's been said before, but make sure that you consult all the people that worked on the project. Let them know that you're going to be submitting it. Ask them if there are any details that could make a difference to tell about the development, the software itself, how the project, the VR experience was operated, where it was, because all of those people that actually worked on the project will have a different point of view on how to push it to win an award. That's really important. And then on top of that, make sure that there's one person who is in your organization in charge of the final submission, because we did a little bit of that in our first year submitting, where we had a few people working on different submissions for different projects. And it's better if you harmonize the tone of voice, and if you make sure that that there's one person that is gathering all the information and being the final person that validates the submission. So yeah, I think those would be the tips that I would give. And remember that the VR Awards team are extremely nice, and they're very reactive, and that's really, really appreciated. So just rely on them if you have any question, and understand that not only winning but being shortlisted is a great way to be visible for a whole year afterwards, because, well, you're doing things like this, webinars, and you're also giving talks, and on social media. The VR Awards are extremely active as well. So yeah, there's only basically positive things coming out of making sure that you submit projects that need to be seen and recognized around the world. Yeah, I did a talk at the VR Days, where I was able to present Backlight, as well as, well, obviously some of our projects. I also did another talk in VR, which I can't recall the name right now. Obviously it would happen now. But yeah, there are a few things where you're able to actually be visible and talk about either the projects that won, or what your studio is doing right now, what your thoughts are on your particular activity. Like, say we work a lot for marketing, so we were able to give our thoughts on the industry to a lot of different people, and a lot of people that work in other studios around the globe. And that's really, for networking, that's great, because you get to meet people that you really don't have time at events, and you get to figure out what they think of the same industry that they're working in as you, and that's really important. But what I would say is the most interesting thing, and my head of communication is not here now, but she would say that as well, is it really helps us maximize our online presence, because when you're working on projects in VR, you're not always thinking of telling the world what you're actually doing, or making sure that every project gets to be seen by as many people as possible. So having those kind of milestones after you've won a VR award is reminding you and your team that you need to put forward that you won that, and that project was great, and that what you're working on right now is even better, and that next year